The emerging field of neuropsychoanalysis has developed its own biologically informed, non-psychoreductive model of the human psyche for application in a clinical setting. With the term neuropsychoanalysis first formally used in 1999, the founder of the field, Mark Solms, has syncretized modern neuroscience, in particular the late Jaak Panksepp's affective neuroscience, with Freudian psychodynamics. Even as early as 1893, Breuer and Freud were proposing that affect, which was not discharged or processed appropriately, was central in the development of psychopathology. In neuropsychoanalysis, that axiom is expanded on in biological detail, albeit with some significant updates. Freud believed in two drives, eros and thanatos. These drives exerted, quote, a demand on the mind to perform work. The ego's task was to take this so-called demand and reality test it for viability against the environment and against the pressure of the superego. Mark Solms has updated Freud's two drives of eros and thanatos with the 7 drives of affective neuroscience, detailed and named by Jaak Panksepp. These are seeking, rage, fear, lust, care, play, and panic/grief. All of them are independent psychoneurological circuits within the subcortical regions of the mammalian brain, hence 7 drives. These drives, to quote Mark Solms, extend organic homeostasis beyond the body. They're always signalling to the periaqueductal grey, a small structure in the brainstem, a specific need, which the organism, or the person, needs to meet. The Pankseppian circuitry then sends a signal up to the cerebral hemispheres, and at the same time, the need that signal corresponds to is felt as affect. This affective signal represents the id, the conscious id, to use Mark Solms's terminology and his update to Freud's original model, in which the id was unconscious. The conscious id then brings the ego online, which is by default unconscious. Again, in Freud's model, it was the ego that was conscious, but in neuropsychoanalysis, that's been reversed. In neuropsychoanalysis, the ego, including Freud's preconscious, is represented by some aspects of long-term memory, and the sensory and motor projection and association cortices. The person is then both able to feel the need and make an action plan of how best they can meet the need. Most of this action planning happens unconsciously, and it utilizes both the declarative and non-declarative types of long-term memory. Declarative memory is the equivalent of Freud's preconscious. These memories can be brought back into conscious awareness. Non-declarative memories, however, cannot. They have lost, or never had in the first place, any image representational form which is capable of being scrutinized directly by cognition. Thus, the person cannot know directly where they came from. They are responsible for what Mark Solms calls automatizations, and therefore much of neurosis. They are, though very significantly different, the neuropsychoanalysis equivalent of complexes. The automatizations from non-declarative memory act as automatic responses to an internal Pankseppian stimulus. In other words, a Pankseppian drive signals up to the ego to meet its needs in the world, at which point non-declarative memory tends to deliver an attempted hard-coded solution to this need automatically. If the solution is a bad one, probably set up a very long time ago in the past, then the Pankseppian need will remain unsatiated and will continue to fire. This, in neuropsychoanalysis, would mark a state of neurosis, a state of affective drive pressure without any consciousness by the person as to why they're feeling that way at all. Their unconscious solution to trying to meet an often unknown need has failed. Through building consciousness around what their failed solution entails, the neuropsychoanalytic therapist can help a patient build new adaptations on top of the old ones to eventually meet the Pankseppian need and hence resolve neurosis. Neuropsychoanalysis represents part of the new paradigm of psychotherapy.